Uganda has reopened its schools after the longest pandemic-prompted shutdown in the world, but educators and others say that the closing has taken a lasting toll, eroding decades of classroom gains in the East African nation. Despite efforts at remote education, more than half of Uganda's students effectively stopped learning after the government ordered classrooms closed in March 2020.
Up to a third of students, many of whom took jobs during the pandemic to support their struggling families, may not return to the classroom. Now, from NewsCentral's research, we have joining us this morning Babatunde Oguntimehin for more updates on this story. Good morning, Babatunde. Such a delight to have you on the program. But at last, in Uganda now, schools are opening up. How do you think this has impacted pupils after 2 years out of school?
Thank you for having me here. There has been so much effect of the COVID lockdown on schools in Uganda. We shouldn't forget about the fact that during the peak time of COVID in 2020, more than 1.6 billion kids all over the world were out of school in over 191 schools, and this affected the whole world. Why Uganda was different was because it was the longest. Almost 83 to 84 weeks. That's crazy. And the students were at home. More than 10 to 15 million kids were at home. And it was so much that the Minister for Education, who is also the wife of the President, Janet Museveni, said it was something they had to do because they didn't want the kids or their parents who were a vulnerable population in their country to be affected. So this mandated them, made them to allow the COVID lockdown. So it was too much. It's 3 weeks was too far, and the kids were at home. Although they said that's the Minister for Education said they had to do it. So right now the students are resumed, and we'll see how the whole thing will pan out.
All right. There are more than 15 million kids affected in Uganda. With the length of time they have spent out of school, do you see all these kids going back to school almost immediately?
Wow, that's something else. Reports say more than 1/3 of the children might not come back. And there are so many reasons that have been attributed to this. Number one, so many of the ladies, especially some of the girls, might have gotten pregnant. There's a report that says more than 23% of Ugandan schoolgirls, especially between the ages of 10 and 24, have gotten pregnant between March 2020 and May 2021, when the lockdown was so serious. So automatically this category of students won't be coming back to school. And also, because of the lockdown, so many families that were badly affected had some of their kids coming out of school to help the parents in upkeep of the home. So some of them have taken up jobs. They might not be coming back. And some teachers too, because so many of them were not paid during the 83 weeks of lockdown. Some of them have gotten jobs elsewhere, and it will be very difficult for some of these teachers to come back, especially since they've been grounded in other fields. It will be very difficult to have them back. The parents too are still battling with the after effect of the COVID lockdown. Their finances are still very poor. How do they come to send these kids back to school? I mean, it's all a very dicey situation.
It has been dicey.
We can see how it goes.
It really has been dicey. I mean, looking at Uganda now, it's one of the longest closures of schools around the world because of the pandemic. But today, you know what? Let's take a look at this very short video of a Ugandan child who's been out of school for the duration.
I am happy because I was missing my teachers and my study.
Now you just heard from that child. He's excited to be back in school, and we can tell from the mixed feelings. Some of them are anxious resuming school again. However, Tunde, do you emphasize another closure, especially with this new variant that we hear that is being called the Delta Cron, which is a mixture of the Omicron and the Delta variant?
That's true. Although some Ugandans are still wondering why, although they've spent 3 weeks at home, some families are still wondering why they are calling the kids back to school now, because just like you said, in the last 2 weeks, the COVID positivity cases in Uganda has risen by over 200%. So this might give a very great concern, but there are so many organizations, not-profit organizations that have been partnering with Uganda. So we hope that while they are resuming, they will be taking care of some of these things, like they'll be watching out and make sure some of these infections do not go around. And then apart from that, the schools too, the government has been doing so much, especially they've told some of these private schools not to overcharge the schools, so they overcharge the students, so by the time they come back, we see them, and also their curriculum too has been tweaked. So we hope that by the time they come back, there might not be a foreclosure of the whole COVID situation, but who knows? We can only wait and see if schools will be shut down. But definitely, COVID-19 is still on the increase.
It surely is. Now, Uganda has also recorded over 150,000 cases of COVID-19 and over 3,300 deaths, according to the latest government figures that was issued on the 7th of January 2022. But thank you so much, Babatunde. Thank you for coming on the program to enlighten us on this. Let's just hope the children will resume school as expected.